Hi, this is Mike from OPST. I'm back on the water today. Things that come with winter casting is trying to get distance, repetitiveness, always trying to get as far as you can, or fish a seam. Line management becomes a huge issue, problem, or not a problem if you manage it right. It's the difference between a good cast going as far as you want it to, or the drag off the water slowing everything down and causing your cast to be much shorter. The first key to that is you're stacking lines, your line in your hand, and your first loop that you make is always going to be your longest one, and every loop after that is going to be a little bit shorter than the previous one. And when you do that, your line will shoot out very easily. It won't get tangled. If you run in the opposite and your first loop is short and then you go longer and longer, you're going to get a lot of tangles when you launch out, because it's going to want to climb over itself and stack on itself. You can count your strips. You can kind of eyeball it once you get used to it. Like this example, my first strip is going to be about a rod's length away. That's going to be about 8 strips. And your next one's going to be anywhere from like 5 to 7 strips. And it just depends on how much line you got out. And if you're doing a longer cast than that, your next cast is going to be 1 to 3 strips shorter than the previous one. And then typically 3 stacks of line is going to be a really long cast. So managing 3 stacks is where you're typically going to be at the most. I don't recommend more than that, because you can stretch them out pretty far that way. So you can count them. Like I said, I'm gonna pinch this one down. I'm gonna start my next one, and I kind of know I'll count them on the next one, but you can see my first loop is long, my second loop is significantly shorter, because I'm not making a super long cast right now. If I was going longer, I would extend the second one out a little bit closer to that one, and then I'd start a third one. So first one's the longest, second one you can see is significantly shorter. That'll help with your launch. You let it go, very little drag out of the water. Everything you do is trying to reduce resistance out of the water. That's why we fish mono, that's why we have laser line. It's resistance. If you're fishing trout stuff, our smooths are really, really good, because we're not really worried about that. We're more into having fish chase, and you're stripping, and you're not making casts across big rivers typically with the smooth. So if you were trout fishing and it's big water, I still recommend mono. If you're average creek, small creek, the smooth is definitely much user friendly on your hands for casting and strip back in. The end of the tip, you can strip the head all the way in, so if you got a fish that's going to eat right in front of you. But for distance, mono, stacking with your smooth, you're still going to stack loops just like this, because again, it's friction on the water. So you got your stack, let it go, very little resistance. And I'll show you just an example. This time I won't stack. I'm just gonna lay all my line out into one big loop. And again, this isn't a super far cast, so you can probably do it, but the resistance is much more. Same cast, much more resistance, much shorter distance, versus now I'm just, where it stopped, that's my loop now. I'm just gonna start exactly where that last cast stopped. And then when I go to launch, much better. There's a chum rolling up right here. So again, you can count them, 8 strips, 10 strips, give yourself a rod's length roughly away from you on your first one. You can stack on your front hand, not a bad thing if you're learning. It's probably a good habit. Most of us have bad habits, and we're on the bottom hand. The reason why I say it's good on the top hand, because your top hand is your swivel hand, it's not your power hand. Again, bad habits. I got a lot more top hand. But line management is key for distance. So I'll do it again. We're gonna let it all out. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm gonna let it go just to show you. Just a little bit past the rod, so I'm a foot past the rod right here. and I'm gonna stack and do it again. And this one is gonna be like 5. So I'm quite a bit shorter. This is probably 4 on this one. But as long as it's shorter, that's what you want. You don't want that second one to be the longer one. And then when you let it go, it's gonna launch right out.